Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
You know, Wobbles, I'm kind of mad at you.
And as a reasonable man, I'm willing to do whatever's necessary to find a peaceful solution to these problems.
Welcome, hola, hello, happy New Year, happy Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Kwanzaa. Welcome to Punching Up, the movie podcast. This episode is about the best and maybe the worst films of 2024, but mostly the best of 2024, according to myself, Damien, and my co-host, Adam.
Hi.
Without further ado, let's just kick it off, Adam. I'll give it to you, mate. You go. You can start off, and let's just back and forth and see how we do.
Okay, just to slightly qualify my list, I wouldn't say that mine's my favourite films of the year. So there's some on here that I don't think would be on anybody's best list, but I really like them at the exclusion of other objectively better films, probably, and some of them are unequivocally brilliant films. I'm going to start off with The End We Start From, which is, I think, the first film I saw in 2024 that really kind of hit me and stayed with me and just stayed in my mind. And it's a British film starring Jodie Comer about a pregnant woman who's separated from her husband during an environmental catastrophe where the rains just don't stop raining. And Britain becomes flooded and society breaks down. So in that sense, it's sort of very similar to, say, the science fiction writing of people like John Christopher, who wrote The Death of Grass, or John Wyndham, who did Day of the Triffids. Although it doesn't really feel like a science fiction film. It just feels like a drama in which the world happens to get flooded. And it's just a beautifully rendered, very emotionally powerful sort of apocalyptic drama played out with a phenomenal performance by Jodie Comer, brilliant support. Like, Liz got loads of little pockets of cameos as she sort of works her way across England with this newborn baby as society's collapsing, and runs into Benedict Cumberbatch. You've got Mark Strong. And a phenomenal supporting performance by Catherine Waterston, who I didn't realise how much I liked her until I saw her again in this.
She was great.
Didn't even recognise her. So I love that film. It's anchored in it. It's very British. I like very British sort of apocalypses. Just really moving drama, beautifully greenly shot. And, front and centre of it, an outstanding performance by Jodie Comer. There we go. I love that film.
Okay, cool. Let's punch up, mate. I didn't really like it.
Okay,
I found it a bit. I found it just a little bit sort of drab and a little bit dreary. After you told me about it, and I saw the book in the library, so I picked it up. It was a tiny little book. I thought, it'd take me like an hour to read. Read the book. The book was quite interesting. Same sort of story. Very first person. Very immediate. I don't know if it has the same ending, but yeah, the film I just found a little bit sort of trudgy. I'm not sure about Jodie Comer anymore. Like Michael Shannon in the previous one. I'd seen Jodie Comer, and she's fine in this, mate. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think she's terrible by any means, but I did start watching her Prima Facie, which. Somebody that they sent me a screener to watch the National Theatre's version, and it's not the theatre, it's on TV. It's difficult, but it's just her, and she was. I think I got like 25 minutes, 30 minutes into it, and I just felt that she was like shouting at me the whole time, like from the start, and I just got very bored. And then the bike riders, I think that was a little bit miscasty. But yeah, from being quite a big Jodie Comer fan, now I'm sort of a little bit. I think she's great. She is great, but do I love her? Like, I don't know.
I like hearing her act in a native Liverpool accent, which she doesn't get to do a lot.
Yeah,
I think she
was great in the what was that one with Stephen Graham where she was the nurse?
The COVID drama. Yeah, written by James
she was
Graham,
good in that.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
I've liked her pretty much in everything I've seen her do. I liked her in The Bike Riders. I mean, you have to there's a bit of is this accent too much? Because it's very, very broad. kind of
Very
almost
good
to the
fellas.
point of parody. But then,
Yeah.
she's acting opposite Tom Hardy, who's doing this kind of strange Brando accent. So it's a kind of film. But then you got Norman
Mm.
Reedus and Michael Shannon. So it's a world of like kind of quite big, weird voices and kind of quite grotesque characters. Quite kind of. I mean, the Bike Riders didn't make it into my. I enjoyed it. Didn't make it into my top 10, but I did enjoy
Mm.
it, and I enjoyed her in it, and I like her sort of trajectory into the kind of. She's kind of just hovering a little bit below a kind of Hollywood A-lister because she hasn't had that big massive hit yet, has she? Which
No.
may come next year. I mean, are you looking forward to 28 years later this year? Well, yeah, 2025.
Maybe. I don't really know. I'm not overly not overly excited. I was not a massive like 28 days or weeks later fan.
I like
But
28 weeks. I like 28 days later, but it's not something I ever went back to. I enjoyed I should probably enjoy 28 weeks later more for some strange reason. But have you seen the trailer? Have you seen the trailer for 28 years later with the
no,
scratchy
no.
recording of the Rudyard Kipling poem being read over it? And it's ominous and it just
Great,
looks
I'll check it out.
so sort of dark and brutal, and there's not an awful lot of
Mm.
Jodie Comer in it. Actually, it's more focusing on Aaron Taylor Johnson, but it looks very different, a lot more sort of folk horror-y, a lot more primal, and that might be the thing that just catapults her into sort of like A-list movie stardom. I don't know, and it's also Alex Garland back at the helm, kind of writing
Yeah,
and collaborating
yeah,
with
nice.
Danny Boyle. They've obviously patched up
Mm.
whatever it is that caused them to fall out, many years ago, and and
Yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, I've got a lot more to say about the end we start from. Except I loved it. It just sort of hit me in a certain place. Like all of these films, I think with one exception, all these films have done. And I loved her. I love Joel Fry as well. It's nice to see Joel Fry um, just transition as a drama actor. Because I sort of first encountered him as the kind of Randy Roman in Plebs and the TV comedy series, and then he just seemed to play kind of like Randy Best Mates in comedy movies, and he seems to have done well in kind of horror and science fiction and things like that but Catherine Waterston as well. I mean, what did you think of her in the
Yeah,
end?
I really enjoyed what she did. She's Sam Waterston's daughter, isn't she?
Yeah, she
I didn't
is.
realize that.
Yeah, and she's terrific. I mean, I recently
Mm.
she has a sort of extended cameo in Slow Horses, and I didn't realize she was in that. And I've just been working my way
Mm.
over Christmas, and so it was just lovely to see
Yeah,
her in
yeah.
that. And then that was a nice callback in my mind to how good she was and how different she was. She's very deglamorized in the end we start from. But yeah, I really liked it. You did great. That's fantastic. So
Yeah,
all these things
I thought she was Catherine Waterston was the heart of the film for me.
yeah.
The anchor that I needed.
Mm.
Anyway, my first favorite film of the year I saw like in January, and that was The Holdovers. I
Yeah.
thought it was absolutely wonderful, just charming. Alexander Payne's first film was the wine one. What was it
Sideways.
called? Yes. Which I loved, and I saw Sideways at the film festival as um, a surprise screening, which was great. Loved it, really liked that film, but haven't revisited it, I don't think. But I remember really enjoying it back then. Always loved Paul Giamatti anyway, and yeah, over the years, Alexander Payne sort of sometimes he did The Descendants, right? Is that right with George Clooney? I don't think I
Yeah.
was that bothered about that. I think a little
After
bit.
Schmidt as
Maybe
well.
I wasn't really bothered about After Schmidt. Again, I might re-see these films and enjoy them more as a little bit older. But yeah, for me, The Holdovers just started the year really nicely. It was the kind of film that I love to go and see. It has heart. It's beautifully scripted, beautifully performed. Some just wonderful scenes. The Divine Joy Randolph, her whole arc was just brilliant, I thought. And great to see somebody who you haven't really seen before just kind of blow up. And she got the Oscar, didn't she? Or she got nominated at least.
I think she got the Oscar, yeah.
Yeah, great. And I went to boarding school when I was a kid, so and I never stayed over at the holidays. I never got left over, but there were some kids that did, and so I kind of, I had a little bit of simpatico for them, and I really liked how the you thought it was going to go one way with all the kids together and it was going to be like that. And then suddenly they got rid of most of them, sent them off skiing. And then it was just the core three, Giamatti, Devine, and then the main kid. Who was the main kid?
I don't
I'm not
remember.
writing his name down.
He's very good.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't need to say too much about that, but I was utterly charmed by it. And that's definitely my kind of film.
Yeah, completely
Something
agree
with
with
heart
everything.
and-
It's not in my list, but it didn't. It's weird because there's a lot of the kind of post, because in England, I don't know, it's like we get all the kind of the big Oscar movies in January and February, and so there's a few things that aren't on my list that were big Oscar movies that I enjoyed, but I kind of, if I don't kind of, it's not, may not be really fair, but if I don't remember them, they don't stay with me. And say the way that the end we start from stays with me, I don't include them. So
Yeah.
I think with one exception, which we'll come to in a minute, is and so like Poor Things isn't on my list. Mind you, I did fall asleep through Poor Things. I thought it was very, very long. So it probably wouldn't have made my list anyway. I think I admired it more than I liked it. And The Holdovers, which I loved, isn't on my list, but I haven't really thought about it that much, although it was a wonderful film. But I have to say, if we had a category for the best insult in a movie,
Yeah.
it's Paul Giamatti's. We won't say it if you haven't seen the film because it's such beautiful. It was such a lovely surprise. It was just like the Paul Giamatti's kind of kiss off to his sort of principal, his boss, is one of the best insults I think I've ever heard in a movie. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that film. Got no problems with that.
Okay.
The next one, this is a so make you laugh. This I was umming and ahhing as to whether to put the Terrifier franchise in all three movies because I had such a good time with them, and I just think yeah. But we've done an entire podcast on the Terrifier movies, so if you listen to that, go back and listen to it, and you'll hear more than you ever want to know about what I think about Terrifier movies.
Yeah.
So I didn't, but I did put in a film I'm probably never ever going to watch again. But I had to put it in because it was so objectively brilliant, experimental, and has earned its place, I think, probably in the canon of great movies, and that's The Zone of Interest.
That's on my list. Well, that's sort of kind of on my list. Yeah.
So Jonathan Glazer's kind of very, very sort of interestingly angled take on the Holocaust, which is essentially. It's essentially, for all intents and purposes, a sort of just a family drama that just happens to be played out by the commandant of Auschwitz and his wife, and the only kind of mainly the only references to Auschwitz you have are the fact that Auschwitz, the compound is kind of basically the literal physical background to these kind of quite banal domestic dramas, and it sort of manifests in sort of smoke, sort of muted screams. So it's got one of the kind of most interesting soundscapes. And then the allusion to the Holocaust, like them going through what looks like a load of sort of secondhand coats, and then you realise that they're coats from murdered people. And it's just a chilling way of just kind of approaching a subject that's kind of been approached many, many times in very, very kind of similar ways, and just causing you to look at evil in a kind of very uniform, banal way, that these were people, and it makes them more chilling, who are just doing a job, going to work, coming back to work, chatting with their wives, falling out, having affairs, and then all the time, literally in the background, people are being sort of murdered. And I think it just sort of confirms Jonathan Glazer, in my opinion, as to be the best British director working today. I think he's a kind of, weirdly, you're pulling a face, but it's sort of weirdly, having that kind of weird, kind of thing of producing a film every 10 years and every film being distinct, unique to him stylistically, so kind of different from what anybody else has made. You know, like comes out of the gate with the ostensibly quite familiar British gangster movie at the tail end of Geezer Gangsterdom. Maybe produces the best one in Sexy Beast, which is probably the most accessible film he's made. You know, but still has these strange like avant-garde interludes, like the kind of demon rabbit that turns up, you know, and then I never saw Birth, which I need to redress, but I think
I watched Birth and I never saw the other one.
Under the Skin's extraordinary,
Yeah.
and that it's extraordinary. Sort of, for want of a better word, science fiction horror film, but it's like no science fiction horror film you've ever seen, and just sort of feels almost like a documentary crew has followed an alien to Glasgow, is going around kind of murdering people, and you just sort of almost have it from the alien's point of view, where the normal becomes alien, and it has a kind of absolutely outstanding performance from Scarlett Johansson, who's, you know, just doing some incredible work. You know, like, you know, sort of, yeah. So I thought The Zone of Interest was astonishing, and I couldn't objectively not put it in. Although I'll probably never, like Schindler's List, I'll probably never watch it.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant movie, and I hate using the word important movie but it is an important movie. But its importance is maxed by its sort of stylistic brilliance, and also the performances. You know, by you know, Sandra Huller, you know, from Anatomy of a Fall. She had an incredible year with that, and this kind of back to back, and I've got to consult my notes. Is it Christian Friedel who plays a husband? Yeah. The Zone of Interest in there.
Those both the Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest I watched in 2023, and they were on my list of last year's best films. So they sort of came in, you know, different times. But yeah, Zone of Interest was an incredible. One of the films that is just misses the list. It's something that I saw this morning. A Real Pain. The Kieran Culkin and what's his name, man?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg. Yeah, basically Jesse Eisenberg is Woody Allen without the funny.
Woody Allen now.
Serious. Yeah, Woody Allen now, basically.
and without the horrible cloud hanging over it.
Yeah. It's a film about two cousins who go to Poland to see where their grandma, who died 6 months previously, lived originally before she came to America. And I think she just missed the invasion by the Germans. And it kind of, not culminates, but like near the end, they go to one of the concentration camps. And it would be it would be a sort of more humane companion film to Zone of Interest. There's more like humanity in it as far as like the characters, and obviously it's set now. And also, what's his name? I keep forgetting his name.
Jesse Eisenberg.
No. Who was the guy who was in Jiri Haji, the English guy, writer?
Will Sharp.
Will Sharp, yeah, I keep forgetting his name. Will Sharp, yeah, he was in The Factory for a little while when we were doing it, theatre company. He's really good in it as well, and as is Jennifer Grey. But yeah, go and see that when that comes out. That should be soon. That's only 90 minutes.
Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing.
Yeah. I only knew it when I saw her name at the end, and really sweet film, really interesting film about sort of depression, about people, about relationships. And yeah, Kieran Culkin is, I mean, they're both playing two type a little bit. So a lot of the stuff we've seen in Succession, we've seen Kieran Culkin do, but he's still very good and very charismatic, very charming, and also very layered. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of on my list from that I just saw this morning. So
you got a free half one in there.
I did, yes. Yeah. Well,
do you want to do your next? Should we do the next one, and then we can do a worst of? Can we do a worst?
Yeah. Of course we can, mate. We can do whatever we want. It's our podcast. We can throw any rules out the window. Society of the Snow. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see that at cinema. It was just on Netflix, and there was nowhere that it was showing. But I thought that was, like you said about the end we start from, it stayed with me. I thought it was incredibly powerful. It's been a long time since I've seen a disaster movie that has moved me so much. Obviously because it was based on the what is it, the Uruguayan plane crash in 1972 that was made into a film, American film called Alive, starring Ethan Hawke, directed by Frank Marshall in 1993. It's like a powerful, like honest, beautiful tale of brotherhood, of humanity. I was just very moved by it.
Reluctant cannibalism. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, reluctant cannibalism, which tends to be the the sort of the end, doesn't it? Really, but I think it's the most shocking part of it, I suppose, to people. But yeah, to me, that's not the most important part of the film. It's not the part that stayed with me. The yeah, beautiful acting. I mean, mostly Spanish speaking, all Spanish speaking actors, South American actors. Real acting. No. I've been thinking about acting a lot, like performative acting. We were talking about The Shape of Water and how big Sally Hawkins was sometimes, and I've just been watching some acting and seeing acting. Saw Gina Gershon in Touch and just saw perform. It's like I want to see any of that. Whereas in A Real Pain, Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin are not doing that, and then especially in Society of the Snow, they're just there in that place. I thought it was beautiful, and tragic and stunning, and yeah, it really stayed with me.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen it, can't comment on it. Sure, I'd absolutely hate it. No, I'm joking. And no, you did actually kind of like move me to see it, and I just never got around to it because I think because it's sitting on there on Netflix, made by Netflix.
Yeah.
Never going anywhere as long as Netflix exists. You think, well, I can always watch that, and that's the worst. Yeah, that's almost like shorthand for I'm never going to watch it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll get around to it now. I'm honor bound to watch it because
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Can we? I'm
worst.
Sick of praising films. This is a punching up. We've been showing too much mercy and generosity. Trap is the new. It seems like really mean to sort of give M. Night Shyamalan.
That's punching down, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just punching right down because it's just like people just punch him all the time. So I'm not going to be too mean about this movie because there is a lot to enjoy in it. No, my category for worst movies, by the way, is movies that genuinely made me angry watching them. So if it didn't make me angry, it doesn't make the cut. But Trap, even by M. Night Shyamalan standards, it's a movie about a plot to trap a serial killer in a concert where they figured out he's taken his daughter to this massive concert where the singer is a singer called Lady Raven, who's actually played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. So it acts as a double promo for his daughter's kind of proto pop career. It's surrounded by FBI agents. That's the plan. And then they're going to sort of figure out who he is by besieging this building. Everyone knows something's up because it's surrounded by armed police. And then they've gone to the trouble of telling all of the vendors what's happening. So then they expect like this plan never to get out. And the killer, it's in the trailer, the killer figures it out because he just asks the vendor what's going on and the vendor tells him. And then it's about, will he get out? You know, what's he going to do? His daughter wants to see this concert. He's a dad. He's a serial killer, and that's just the beginning of, even by M. Night Shyamalan standards, this kind of twist upon twist that if you were making a parody of an M. Night Shyamalan film, you'd make Trap, but he's made it, and it seems very sincere. I'd love his end game at the end of his life to be like, yeah, I knew it's rubbish. I just wondered how. I just thought I'd carry on pushing it with each movie just to see how, if people would still give me money, and you still did. You're the idiots. You know, F you. I'm checking out of here. And I don't think that's the case. I think he genuinely thinks he's being clever and smart, and it's almost like he's never talked to a police officer about anything procedural, and it's just utterly ridiculous, and but in a way that I think made me angry when I was watching it, and then just really amused me when I was thinking about it. So it probably shouldn't even be on this list because it did provide a lot of inadvertent.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so that's my mildest. I think the other three films.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Films. I was going to say that I tapped out of M. Night Shyamalan like after Unbreakable or something, like his third film or something. I don't think I've seen a film since then. But lots of people seem to like him. Like you do hear every night, oh, I'm like Shyamalan. Yeah, I love The Village. I love Signs. I love. It's like, yeah. I mean, all I hear is how corny the ends are and how the endings are and how that they don't really sort of work as well as you want them to. You know.
I have to say that my kind of disdain for this film is tempered by the fact that I did actually once talk to M. Night Shyamalan during back when I was reviewing films for a magazine, and we went to the BAFTA headquarters to watch Unbreakable, which I loved. I loved his first three films. I kind of, yeah, I like The Sixth Sense. I loved Unbreakable. I really like Signs, actually. I think Signs was great. And he and we had like a video link up with him, and I just asked him a question, and I kind of, I can't remember the word. I used the word flagrantly. As I was talking about, I used the word flagrantly, and he complimented me on my vocabulary and use of the word flagrantly. So he's bought, I'm easily bought with a compliment. But he did seem, I have to say, he does seem like a really nice guy. And if we sort of call back to our Terrifier episode, it was it Lauren Levera working on Split. I think it was like Split or Glass, which was ridiculous. Glass, and Split was great. Split was really good, and she was working on that as a stunt woman, and she said how nice he was with her and the actors, and how pleasant he was to work with. It was the thing that made her want to transition from a stunt woman into an actor, which led to her kind of appearance and sort of horror stardom in the Terrifier movies. So the caveat is he's apparently a really nice guy, and his actors love him. So fair play to you. If you want to carry on making these ridiculous twisty movies, go for it.
Why not carry on?
Why not? Yeah, you're not a monster. You're not raping your extras. You're not doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't like your movie. The friend I went to see it with really liked it. So I don't know. I'm going to retract my worst of. I think about.
And I suppose like worst of, like my worst ofs are more sort of like biggest disappointments, to be honest with you, rather than actual hate.
Well, no, I haven't. No, my I've distinct. I kind of. My disappointments are just disappointments. I mean, the film has to make me angry. Has to make me kind of just you've wasted my time.
We have different criteria.
Yeah. I'm, me. I'm more. There's more. Rage. There's more buried, suppressed rage.
Mate, it's not buried. It's not suppressed.
Oh no, it is
like
buried
on the surface, bursting out.
I don't do it anymore because I thought one day someone's going to punch me in the face, but like maybe every 10 years I would just blow up at a member of the audience. I remember during Django Unchained once, we had these guys who were just making so much noise. I just turned around and basically offered them outside, which is ridiculous because I can't fight. I'm big. I'm big. For those who don't know me, I might look a little bit threatening when I don't smile. And I just went, quiet outside. I screamed at them. I don't know what would have happened if I'd have gone outside. I remember yelling at some Italians who were just basically talking all the way through a screening of Strange Days, and every time something like rude happened, including, well, I say rude, that's just really, including like that there's a kind of rape in the film, they just started getting, like stereotypical like Italian whoa, sort of, they started getting like that during anything where there was a bit of nudity, I think including a rape sequence, and I just glared at them. And then they left the cinema. I think I might have shouted at them. I think I did say something to them, and they left the cinema. Yeah, and I spent the rest of the movie fearing that they were waiting for me to kick my head in some kind of Soho alley. But I don't do that anymore. I don't do it. It's just I can't do it. It's
good to know.
It's like you kind of grow up. And you don't.
I will give you my the first of my biggest disappointments. I'm not going to spend too much time on it by any means, but I was really looking forward to this one, and just found it quite flat. And that was the Iron Claw. That was at the start of the year as well. I just found it not as sort of moving as it wanted to be. Some nice, a couple of nice performances, but I just wasn't really that bothered. And also, I couldn't get over how High School Musical just looked like, some sort of He-Man
It's
plastic surgery.
literally got High School Musical guy in it, hasn't it? I've forgotten his name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This High School. I mean, Zac Efron.
Zac Efron.
Yeah, nice
Because
guy. Not got a problem with him. Not got a problem with him. It's not like my favorite. I don't think he's a terrible actor, but
he's a good actor. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and
that was,
Jeremy,
that
that
was,
must have been a bit of a blow. Jeremy Allen White's his first big movie off the back of The Bear, wasn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, he came off good in it, and also Harris Dickinson was in it as well. I like Harris Dickinson, who's going to have a big year this year, I think, off the back of Baby Girl. But his Triangle of Sadness, that's where I first saw him. I think he's really an interesting actor, young English actor. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Back to the best ofs. We've only got through like two, and it's like half an hour.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, we need to kind of ramp it up a bit, don't we?
Yeah. Okay. Like, I'll do one, and I think it might be a shared one.
Yeah.
So Perfect Days.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's enough. Let's move on.
Just so beautiful, man. Like, so beautiful. Again, a wonderful performance. Koji Yashuko. What's his name? Koji Yakusho. Yeah, that's it.
I wrote it
Koji
down.
Yakusho, who's a student of Tatsuya
Nakadai, my new favorite actor.
Yeah, who you've been having a bit of
a kind of romance with this year.
Yeah, this year, which is great. And I've seen him a few times on the big screen this year as well in some Kurosawa reissues. But yeah, Perfect Days, beautiful. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's about an old Japanese toilet cleaner, and it's kind of like an existential film about this old dude, directed with like poetry and heart and beauty by the great Wim Wenders.
I know, an old German dude.
Yeah, an old German dude. Yeah.
And it's a really good companion piece to Paris, Texas, I think, which I saw. I saw not for the first. I saw it for the first time on the big screen, which was beautiful. So you've got these same kind of like silent, damaged kind of heroes just going about their business, really. And I didn't go and see this film at the cinema because it looked, quite frankly, really boring. It's just about a guy cleaning toilets. And then I have a friend who I meet up with, and we're trying to sort of watch different art house movies, and we kind of trade. He'll get me to watch one, I'll get him. And I think you sort of talked about Perfect Days, and I'd seen Koji Yakusho's Criterion Closet picks, and I was really charmed by him, and then found out that he was a student of the great Tatsuya Nakadai, Japan's greatest living actor, and so I suggested it. We watched it, and I just kicked myself for not seeing it at the cinema. Having said that, it's at the cinema this week, and I'm not going to go and see it. But it's a beautiful film about a man cleaning toilets. That's about the hardest sell for a movie I can think of, but it's just absolutely poetic, beautiful. It was on my list as well, so that's good. We've got
nice.
We're kind of clawing the time back. I love.
We have a mutual.
Yeah. Okay,
nice.
so I'm going to pick a film that I know is not on your list. Challenges. The Luca Guadagnino movie about tennis. Again, on paper, really boring. I don't really want to watch tennis movies. I don't think I've ever watched a tennis movie quite like Wimbledon occasionally. But I just found this absolutely compelling. It's a sort of love triangle movie about a gifted tennis player who blows a knee out, clearly better than these two men that are basically kind of her romantic lapdogs for a while. She marries one, the other becomes a derelict. She's effectively sort of vicariously playing tennis through them, manipulating them both. It's got an interesting time structure where you have this tennis match, this tennis match between these two rivals that's being played out, and then you sort of jumping backwards in time, and it has this kind of propulsive energy to it that I liked. It has this phenomenal Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor score. It's sort of savage. It's quite primal, brilliant performance from Zendaya, who I think just stepped up, to become a great adult actress, not an adult actress, but a great leading woman actress. It was really unfortunate that the actors' strike kind of nixed it from being released for the Oscars, because I'm sure she would have been in contention. And then great supporting performances from the English boy whose name I forget,
Josh O'Connor.
Josh O'Connor, and is it Mike Feist?
Mike Feist, yeah.
Mike Feist. And I loved it, and I think it ends. So it sort of ends on a sort of vocal note. You'll know when I see it that I just kind of just sent electricity through me. I love this film. Really enjoyed it. Off you go. I know you did feel quite.
Yeah. I sort of I enjoyed aspects of it. I'm a huge Zendaya fan. As you know, Euphoria was my jam. I think her performance in Euphoria is like amongst the greatest performances in the last sort of 10, 15 years on television. And it's, she's an actress who is going to go from strength to strength to strength. She stole Dune out of from everybody else, really. I found that last tennis match, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the music cues in it. I didn't like the use of music. I found it sort of really jarring, and it didn't sort of help propel the narrative forward. And I felt they just went on too long. I don't know that I'm a big Luca Guadagnino fan. You just saw Queer, right? It was Queer.
Yeah, I did, which I didn't like.
So, yeah. I haven't really seen much of his, to be honest. I think I've only seen. I don't know if that's the only thing I saw.
Bones and All. Did you see that? Did you see Bones and All?
No, I didn't. But I should have a look at that. Actually, that's Chalamet, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, I think that's a good in, actually. I think Challenges is a good in, but I mean, Bones and All has the sort of other sort of genre, kind of in of essentially being a horror film, because it's about cannibals, very sympathetic cannibals, kind of on the run, teenage cannibals, and it has a brilliant performance in it from Mark Rylance as this kind of strange, kind of quasi, kind of folksy cannibal patriarch. I really like. It's a very contentious film, but I really liked his remake of Suspiria. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
But I haven't seen. Oh, and I did see I Am Love, but I haven't seen Call Me by Your Name, which was the thing that really kind of
talking about cannibals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go on.
The best thing about, apart from Zendaya, the second best thing about Challenges was it introduced me to Josh O'Connor, who I'd never seen before, and I thought he was brilliant. And then I saw him again twice in Lee, the Kate Winslet war photographer film, which was very good. It's not on my list, but that was a really cool film. He was really good in that. And then I did watch La Chimera recently, which I didn't enjoy so much. Found it a little bit sort of trudgy and a bit sort of boring.
No, I enjoyed that. I didn't make my list, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I thought he was great in it. Sort of weirdly,
he is great.
White suit, weirdly kind of channeling Warren Oates and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia with this like white suit that just gets progressively dirtier the more he spends time scrabbling around in like tombs and sort of hanging out with homeless people and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I like that. Yeah.
The first horror film on the list, Immaculate.
Yeah,
that's on my list. I loved Immaculate. Again, Sydney Sweeney, I think she's ace. Like she was on my list last year with Reality. I think she's a fantastic actress. She makes really interesting choices, and she's always incredibly believable. And she's absolutely amazing in Euphoria again. Non-exploitation. It made me watch a few other non-exploitation films that I'd not heard of. None of them were any good. It was loads better than The First Omen, that had my friend Nell Taggart-Free in. She was really good in The First Omen, but I think it was overshadowed massively by Immaculate's ballsiness. It's the cinematography and the central performance by the wonderful Sydney Sweeney.
No, I agree. It's not on my list. It was regrettably not on my list. It was just because I thought it was terrific. And I didn't think I would. I remember seeing the trailers and I think it was Mark Commode actually, who I blow hot and cold with, but he's very, very good at advocating for films that are kind of being critically slammed left, right, and
Mm.
center. And he just feels differently about and I think it was his review that got me to see it. And I love the absolute sort of formality of the way everything was composed. There was a real control and tightness
Mm.
that they just let loose with this phenomenal ending, which is essentially, well, if you haven't seen it, it would be. I mean, I know we spoil things left, right, and centre, but in this instance, it would be kind of criminal to kind of.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the camera work is just very kind of handheld and following Sydney Sweeney um, throughout the climax, pretty much on her face all the time, and all the control kind of is leading up to this explosion of just the absence of control and you know Sydney Sweeney basically losing her shit in the best way
Mm.
possible. And then it has one of those
Brilliant.
endings, there's endings that come as surprises and endings where you think, oh, I think you're going there. Do you have the courage to go there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you think, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. Surely not. You're not gonna, and then they do, and it has probably like you said, the ballsiest ending of any movie I've seen,
Mm.
and it
Yeah.
focuses entirely on how brilliant Sydney Sweeney is. So I'm kind of regretting not putting it in my top 10. If we had an 11, it would probably be in there. But yeah, no
Yeah.
problems with that. That was a brilliant movie. Yeah, great. Um,
Over to you.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll kind of give you a disappointment, and I'm not angry,
Yeah.
but disappointed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I love westerns. The big western news this year was, sort of Kevin Costner backing himself, putting his money into this quartet of westerns, Horizon and American Saga, bombed hard. He just seemed to kind of lose everything. Like he sacrificed his leading role in Yellowstone over it, fell out with Taylor Sheridan, and seems to have just like lost the battle and lost the war in what was, and it wouldn't have been bad. Went to see it thinking, well, he might have lost money over this, but if this is kind of like magnificent, like Heaven's Gate, it will have this afterlife.
Mm.
And I watched this 3 hour movie. It was never boring, but it was all right. And for someone who bets the farm on something like that, for it to be just kind of okay, yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. Was just really disappointing considering his track record, his advocacy for the Western, the fact that he made Open Range, which is a genuinely great Western, and and has done terrific work on TV in the genre, including Yellowstone. And then it was just, oh, okay, that was all right. And it was a bit opaque, and I kind of forgot about it. And I thought that's not good. And we may never see. I think he's even shot and screened in festivals. The second one, we may never see it on a cinema screen. It didn't look that great on a cinema screen
Wow.
anyway, because he filmed it in a sort of television like aspect ratio, which seemed kind of willfully perverse for a western.
Mm.
And that's all I want to say about it, really.
Yes, interesting. Kevin Costner's had like big sort of roller coaster sweeps in his career, hasn't he? Like The Postman, and obviously the critical acclaim of like Dances with Wolves, and then interestingly enough, he was like riding so high with Yellowstone, like he literally got all the kudos back. Everybody loved him. He's John Dutton. They loved him. Went off to do his thing, and now he's boom back down there. It does feel it's like I don't know, big ego, possibly. I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
know. It's
know.
hard to say.
Yeah, I don't want to say. I mean, he had his, you don't know. I mean, I think his ego is probably matched by Taylor Sheridan's. You get the sense. I mean, say Taylor
Sure,
Sheridan's currently suing Cole Hauser over
whiskey.
well, a coffee, I think, isn't it?
Oh, coffee, right? Yeah,
yeah, just some signage on his coffee thing. So, I don't know. I mean, I think he's yeah. I just think he's a gambler, which is great. We'll talk about another one of those a little bit later. He
yeah.
bets on himself and he lost. It's like you gamble, you
That's the
lose.
farm.
And
Mm.
yeah, I hope he comes back. I hope hope the other films are better, and wish Mr. Costner well in his future
Yeah,
endeavor to revive the Western. So
yeah,
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 that's disappointment
yeah.
for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my next disappointment, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to go. There's another disappointment that you'll agree with, and that's Maxine.
Yes. Yeah.
With how amazing. I mean, X was great. X was like, you know, a 4-star film, but Pearl was like a 5-star film, mate. It was almost like a perfect film. I've seen it like several times. It's just so well put together. And, you know, it went from X to Pearl to Maxine, which was like way down, you know, underneath as far as quality goes. I mean, I sort of enjoyed it, but it was just when I came away, I just left a bit of a weird taste in my mouth. And then, yeah, we spoke about it a little bit, and yeah, I was very, very disappointed with that one, unfortunately.
No, I agree. I just think there were just too many moving parts. It should have been a streamlined movie, Maxine versus a killer, like the others were. Effectively, the others are very
Yeah,
simple, almost
yeah,
like single location movies. I think LA could have been an interesting playground, but you know, they there's a conspiracy element to it that kind of doesn't work, and you can sort of see the
really doesn't work.
identity of
Yeah.
the big bad guy coming a mile away, and when it comes, you think, well, is that it? Is this a double bluff? No, it's not.
Mm.
And I actually thought for a movie, I think I can't remember. I was going to say Ty Cobb, who was a really unpleasant baseball player. Ty
Yeah.
West.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ty West he's a really good actor's director, and I thought there was some kind of pretty broad performances in it. I thought Kevin Bacon was kind of ridiculous in it, and yeah, it was really just it was the film I was probably the most looking forward to, and then it just
Same.
really disappointed me. But I think there's
Yeah.
still scope. He could sort of redeem the franchise. I mean, there's still like massive kind of unexplored territory in the history of Maxine and her husband, who doesn't really get a,
Mm.
you know. And I think you could go back and maybe do a Maxine anthology, you know, kind of just looking at like what she's like in the 70s. No, in the 50s and 60s, you know, and
Mm.
why her husband sort of kind of goes along with what she does, and you know, and like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
have quite a nice weird love story about the two of them, kind of just learning to kill people and you know falling in love as like a middle-aged couple and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't really want to dwell on the disappointments because
Yeah,
they're all
yeah.
by people I really really like as well. I might even
Mm.
abandon this section just for time's
Yeah.
sake. All
All
right,
right.
can
Well,
I?
yeah,
Yeah,
go
is it
for
my
it.
turn? Is it my turn?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The next one, I put in the Count of Monte Cristo, the French,
Great.
big
Nice.
budget French version of it, because we were having this conversation, weren't we, about how the English don't do big, lavish, entertaining, historical adventure movies, and how the French do. And as you were saying that, I don't think you'd seen the second Three Musketeers movie,
Mm.
which I'd seen and was disappointed with, and I think didn't really tell you because I didn't want to like basically pee on your chips, as they say, before you'd seen it. So I thought, yeah, they do, but then you know they mucked it up with the second Three Musketeers, and then I saw this, which is directed by the duo that wrote the two, you know, adapted the two Eva Green centric Musketeers movies, and I don't know really what to say about it. That's that radical. It's a very well known story, brilliantly, beautifully told. The quickest 3 hours I've ever spent in a movie without anything feeling
Mm.
rushed, and it's just a great. I wouldn't even say old fashioned because they do put some kind of modern psychological spins that don't feel too much like you're projecting, which is one of my big bugbears with historical movies now, that you're projecting 21st century values onto
Yeah.
19th century people. But they do sort of put little twists on, you know, if someone pursues vengeance, it's going to have a corrupting effect. And so I think in the novel, which I've tried to read, but kind of didn't get very far, it's a straightforward adventure tale. He's righteous in his, you know, like, you know, Edmond Dante's the hero, is obviously screwed over by three friends and ends up in prison for like 20 years, and then you know just has this opportunity to plot this elaborate revenge that takes them all down one by one, which he does. But there is a sense that, you know, if you pursue a course of vengeance, it actually has a little bit of blowback. And I'm a massive fan of sword fights. There's one sword fight in the film, and it's one of the best I've seen in years. Phenomenal
Right.
villains, brilliant characters. None of these French actors I'd seen or heard of before. Just a really incredibly well made historic adventure film. There's not much to say about it than that, except that they do everything exquisitely, and it's so entertaining. I saw it in IMAX as well, which helped. It's absolutely beautiful film in IMAX. So The Count of Monte Cristo. It's good. Things like that don't get enough play. They don't turn up in best ofs because they're not reinventing the wheel. They're just providing something that's tried and tested, but in such a it's done with such skill and passion and some artistry, and it's so exciting. It deserves to be in there, I felt.
Yeah, nice one. I have been waiting for it to come at the cinema, and it's just sort of like it's not really. It's as you say, it's not had a great big look in, and I think it's a shame because those big historical epics that, like, as we were saying, that the French do so well. Nobody else is doing that. I mean, yeah, maybe the South Koreans, some of those, the Roaring, what was that, Admiral?
Roaring
Roaring
Currents.
Currents, they do they seem to be have a quite a good handle on historical epics, but like you don't want to see an American historical epic because it's going to be Horizon or something, and I don't, no disrespect to that, but it's going to be of that ilk. Like it's not going to give me what I want. Whereas, yeah, and I like the fact that I like European films anyway. I like French films, so I'm very, very much.
I think the caveat to that is TV does it. So we've just sort of been lamenting the big budget Western, but TV's doing it.
Yeah.
And what you've got, and it's one of the TV shows I'm most looking forward to in the kind of new year. You've got American Primeval.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Which got Peter Berg's almost Cormac McCarthy-esque sort of tale of savagery in the West, focusing on Mormons, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think you've had some phenomenal sort of, just to reduce, limit it to the Western. You have some phenomenal kind of Western TV series, like obviously like the English is another one which I really like with Emily Blunt. So I think TV does this. Movies are struggling at the moment. I think because of budgets and it's a different economic model, and yeah.
Yeah, spending too much money on the wrong things, I think, in Hollywood at the moment, and they're just, they're all over the place. And a lot of these films that we're talking about are smaller films, for the most part. My next one is Kneecap. I thought Kneecap was fantastic, mate. I thought it was so much fun. It had an energy that I haven't seen on the big screen for such a long time. A real sort of punk aesthetic, very human traffic-y, very train spotting-y, raw punk, like visceral energy. The lads were great. The music was great. I saw them play live early on in the year in the Brighton Festival. They were great. Really loved it. Listened to their album several times, and I dig them. And so Kneecap was on there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It didn't make my list, I think, because ultimately, because it's a sort of it's a kind of heavily fictionalized version of their rise to power, isn't it? With a lot of kind of IRA shenanigans thrown in with their dad.
Yeah,
I think that those bits seemed more like a movie, and I think I would have preferred, like, strip that out and let's just have a movie about how they came to be. But having said that, I thought that the musical, that like the sequences, the musical Damien. It was a stealth musical.
Yeah.
You put a musical in your top 10, and
wow, I mean,
well, no, they are. I mean, because the rap sequences are actually quite stylized as well, aren't they? They have animation.
They are, but they're not like singing, walking along the street and talking about their life and singing to the camera. I mean,
it's not Rocket
Man. It's not a
Man.
musical, man.
Not
no,
Rocket
it's
Man,
definitely.
But it's like it is a musical.
It's not a Muppet Christmas Carol.
but no, I thought they were great. I thought the actual kind of sequences where they rap were absolutely brilliantly done. I liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, nice.
That was good.
Over to you.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with an animation, The Wild Robot. It's quite a personal film in many respects because my nephew, I'd never heard of the Wild Robot books, and then they were just lying around. I live, just to explain, I live with my brother and sister-in-law, and so my nephew and I live across the hall from each other, and there were loads of Wild Robot books lying around. I thought, and and my nephew's like really into these books and was really praising them and like insisted that I read them. And then I came in one day and they were all laid out in my room for me to read when I'd said
Nice.
with like personalized little bookmarks he'd made. So I thought, yeah, I'll read them. Yeah, they do look interesting. I'll read them. I read one a day, and they're absolutely brilliant books about this kind of robot that gets shipwrecked on an island and kind of becomes self-aware and learns to sort of adapt to its environment. It's considered a monster, and then is considered kind of essential to the ecosystem of the island. And then they made this movie out of the first book, and it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful piece of animation. It sort of deviates from the book, but in really intelligent ways that maintains the spirit of the book. And one of the things I really like about it is that it sort of it kind of acknowledges how nature works as well. So probably a little bit more so in the book, where they do acknowledge that animals eat each other, and they kind of not they acknowledge that things die, in the way that a lot of great kind of children's literature and entertainment does. It's a way of kind of
Mm.
introducing the child to the way the world works, and this does that. It's brilliantly voiced. You've got a phenomenal vocal performance by, was it Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, who just seems to be in every other thing you watch these days. It's
Yeah.
great as Fox. You've got hardly radical casting, but you've got a very kind of belligerent badger voiced by Matt Berry, who has a great line where they try to get him to do something, and he knows that and they compliment him, and he turns around and he goes, "Oh, was it bovine posterior excrement?" Which is a great way of smuggling a swear word into a children. I just loved it. I thought it was just really moving, beautifully done animation. And
Nice.
can I just use this as a kind of a little kind just to get half one in? Because when I was putting my list together, I thought, oh yeah, I really enjoyed Leo as well, which is a Netflix animation with Adam. It kind of went a bit under the radar, but it's a Netflix animation written by Adam Sandler, where he plays this 70-year-old lizard who becomes an agony uncle to all the kids in this class. He's like one of the pets in the classroom, and they all take him home for holidays, and then he just starts talking to them and solving their problems. And you've got
Nice.
Bill Burr as his tortoise best mate. Cecily Strong, who I really like as one of the characters as well, has these really funny songs. It has Adam Sandler's daughter in it as one of the kids, and it's just really funny and really moving. So
Nice.
that's the wild robot with a little kind of
Touch of
half
Leo.
touch of Leo. So I mean, the wild robot's done all right. I think people have watched it; they know about it. Leo needs a few more people bumping it up the algorithm. So and Adam Sandler is just growing on me exponentially each year with Uncut Gems, Leo. And I've watched half of his stand-up special, which is actually directed by one of the Safdie brothers, and it feels a bit Safdie-esque as well, weirdly enough, because you think, you hear like a big director has directed a stand-up special. You think, well, what do? They just kind of and that's really funny. So, and Adam Sandler just comes across as one of the nicest kind of multi-millionaires in Hollywood as well.
Mm.
The more you learn about him, the more he seems just authentically self-deprecating, humble, incredibly funny. What he wants to be. Just in real life, occasionally really funny in his movies, and a really good actor. So there we go. The
Yeah, a
wild.
really good mate as well, apparently. Like, obviously, he's been looking after people for a long time, and
Yeah,
yeah, he definitely comes across as a nice dude. I'm just
yeah.
not overly into his work, but I
But
support him and
Leo,
all.
Leo's good.
Yeah,
There's a
the
great
Wild
song. The
Robot,
reason
mate.
the reason I'm saying this now is because if I say it, we'll have to include it. Um,
No, 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 no. It's
no, we don't
no,
know.
no.
There's a great song called "Don't Cry," which is really funny.
Right, right.
It's his way of trying to placate this girl, and it just kind of
Yeah.
it zags when you think it's going to zig. It's very very funny.
Let our viewers watch it for themselves and see if they get moved or not. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on quickly to a mutual. This is definitely a mutual. Long Legs,
Yeah,
brilliant.
my number one film
Second
actually.
second
You,
best horror film
yeah, I know.
of the year for me.
Yeah,
yeah, brilliant, scary, atmospheric, unexpected, brilliantly scripted, amazingly performed, with a darkness that we don't normally see in horror films. I think there was an underlying feeling of dread and terror that is usually feels shoehorned in a lot of the horror films that we watch or that come out. And yeah, that was a massive breath of fresh air for me. And like you, went and watched Osgood Perkins, the director, his previous films, The Black Coat's Daughter, which I liked a lot, and then The Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. What's that called?
The Pretty Girl Who Lives Next Door
at the end of the street. Yeah, I didn't like that. Found that a bit boring, but I really like The Black Coat's Daughter, and like I said, I think it definitely feels like it comes from the same universe. And
last night I watched Gretel and Hansel, which I'd really encourage you to watch. And again,
okay,
it feels like the same the same world. It's really interesting, Gretel and Hansel, because it's kind of really hard to place when it's set. It's a period piece, but there's kind of modern architecture, and it exists in this kind of like historical limbo deliberately. It's probably like the most beautiful looking, because all his films kind of exist in this kind of weird, kind of drab grey, deliberately grey palette, don't they? And this has got lush colours that reminded me a little bit more of like Panos Cosmatos as a colour scheme, you know, in Mandy and you know, Beyond the Black Rainbow and things like that. But it's definitely got that same sort of sense of evil, and he's a brilliant actress's director. So you've got Sophie, I can't remember her name. Is it Sophie, the girl from It, the redheaded girl from It, in Gretel and Hansel, and Alice Krieg as the kind of witch.
Great.
I agree with everything you said. Obviously, like the majority of the attention goes on Nicolas Cage, and rightly so, because he just manages to sort of, he's big, but he's not too big. It fits the movie. All of his choices are just so kind of creepy. But I think, you know, you have two phenomenal. It's been a great year for kind of actresses in horror, and you have two of my favorite performances in anything this year. Was it Micah Monroe, who's been kind of like the quiet girl of horror for a long time, since It Follows,
nice.
And you know, and Watcher and Greta and things like that. I think it's the best thing she's done. She's very quiet and contained, which obviously contrasts with the sparing use of Nicolas Cage with his kind of reedy voice and kind of weird outbursts. And then you've got a wonderful performance, really cast against type, of Alicia Witt as the mum. And it's just a brilliant, well, it's a four-hander really, because Blair Underwood is, you know, he's very, very good. And yeah, I don't know, I think I've become an Osgood Perkins fan. I've enjoyed everything he's directed. I really looking forward to the two movies he's got out next year, The Monkey and I can't remember the name of the other one, but and I think he's phenomenal. I think he's brilliant the way he frames things geometrically. He's really into his triangles and his really creepy symmetry, and it just had a mood and a tone and an ellipticism. And it's one of those movies where the film ends and I can't figure out who has the upper hand, you know, good or evil. You know, it's just one of those movies that you think about. I've seen it 3 times, and it's brilliant. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that was my number one film, by the way.
Kiernan Shipka,
yes,
in that, you know, her like little monologue or little scene that was what, like 5-10 minutes or something, was like an
5 minutes, less than
outstanding
10,
piece.
5 minutes, yeah,
outstanding piece of acting, mate. I mean,
outstanding piece of writing as well.
Yes, yeah, for sure. But the delivery, though, you know, like the writing's brilliant, but her delivery was definitely, you know, she added a lot to that, to the writing. Not that.
No, thank you for mentioning that, because I'd almost forgotten about her, and she was like my big sort of takeaway from it. I didn't know who she was. I'd not watched Mad Men. I'd not watched the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and so she was. I thought, who is this? And I've written it down properly. "You dirty, flirty old angel bitch" is my favorite line in any movie, and the way she delivers it is so cheery and utterly sinister. You know, she delivers that to Michael Monroe, and it just every time I hear it, it just sort of chills me. Okie dokie, let's crack on. Is it my turn? It's my turn.
Yeah, yeah.
The Dead Don't Hurt.
Yeah.
We've talked about a disappointing Western that's kind of written, directed, and produced by a star, and this is an utterly satisfying Western, written, directed, produced, and scored by Viggo Mortensen. And you couldn't find a more different movie than Horizon, because it's this intimate chamber piece. It's a love story about this drifter who meets this German immigrant. um the time, it plays around with time structures. It's very focused on the performance of Vicky Creeps. You always get the sense that Viggo Mortensen's a very selfless actor, a very quiet actor, and he's very happy. The story dictates he's away in the war for whole chunks of the story, and it's about this woman surviving on her own under quite kind of adverse circumstances. It's I just thought it was beautiful. It reminded me a lot of some of the slightly more experimental westerns of the 70s, like The Hired Hand, the Peter Fonda film that we sort of discussed, I think, back when we were talking about Easy Rider, and just sort of things like that. It was a beautiful movie. Vicky Creeps was astonishing in it. Viggo Mortensen's he's just he's just good, very quiet, beautifully directed, very interestingly structured, kind of similar in a way to Challengers, but the tone's very quiet. It had the added caveat of having three actors from Deadwood in it. My favorite television program ever. Three actors from Deadwood in it. And then it sort of gives you a little bit of what you want from a Western. You've got like violent confrontations and sort of yeah, man and woman against the wilderness sort of stuff. But I think it's a good Western. It'd be a good Western to recommend for people who don't think they like Westerns, because I think they find a lot in it, that would surprise them, that's in a Western. So The Dead Don't Hurt, and Vicky Creeps would be sort of punching it out with Micah Monroe as to my performance of the year. I like the quite.
She was also in The Three Musketeers as the Queen.
Yes.
Which was really nice.
Phantom Thread, that was her kind of breakthrough role, wasn't it? Phantom Thread, opposite, holding her own against Daniel Day-Lewis, which is kind of no mean feat. Great actors haven't done that.
True. Yeah, very good. I like that. So I have two more. One is Touch, that I saw recently, which is an Icelandic film by Baltasar Kormákur. It's about an old man whose memories fade in, and he's urged by his doctor to go and resolve anything that he needs to resolve before his mind goes. And he goes on a quest to find his first love from the 1960s, when he was in London working at a Japanese restaurant. It's like a non-linear film, lots of flashbacks. Based on a book, an Icelandic book, beautiful for many reasons, but one of them was that it takes place just as COVID's kicking off. So when he's in London, they're telling him he needs to leave the hotel because they're locking everything down. I thought that was quite moving, because obviously we're only 4 years away from that, and I haven't seen anything that's dealt with it, maybe apart from the COVID film that we were talking about with Jodie Comer before. But just as something that's happening in the world while you're trying to do your thing, I thought that was really, really beautiful. This guy Christopher is played by Egil Olafsson, some old dude. Goes on his final odyssey on his odyssey to find his Penelope. The father's played by the father of his girlfriend is played by Masahiro Motoki, who was the lead in the stunning Japanese film Departures. I don't know if you ever saw that, from the 90s, I think it was. That's definitely worth sticking on a list. It's about a guy who goes back to a small town and ends up working in a mortician's, and it's like a treatise on death, and just a beautiful film about life and death. And but he was also the main bad guy in Jiri Haji. So the sort of foil for the main dude. Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. The soundtrack's stunning. It was, again, going back to the first film, The Holdovers, it was just a heart. I'd much rather see a small independent film about humanity. There's a film called Confidenza, Trust, an Italian film that I'm about to see at some point soon, which again has that kind of feel to it. I'm just drawn to those kind of films. They take me on an emotional journey, and really, I just want to feel something. If I go and see a film, I'm sick of seeing things that I've seen before or rehashes of the same thing, which, that's want to happen. So, Touch, there you go. That's my penultimate one.
Speaking of all the things that you just lined up that you hate, my next movie, I know that is you don't like, and I'm assuming that you were alluding to this earlier.
Yeah.
I saw this twice in the cinema in IMAX. I loved it.
Yeah.
I love this franchise. I think it's an endlessly creative franchise that constantly reinvents itself with one of my favorite actresses front and center behind the wheel, literally. And I'm talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I was so looking forward to this. It didn't disappoint me. I thought it was mythic. It kind of expanded the Mad Max world, made it more like overtly Australian, so they've always sort of kind of fudged around that a little bit as to, but this was so explicitly, it literally starts, with a picture of the globe and then zooms in on Australia. I like the fact that it kind of works as a kind of almost like a sort of like grungy, mechanized sort of Greek legend or sort of biblical tale. I think the action's great. I know you completely disagree with this. I love Chris Hemsworth. Someone was pointing out the other day the actually really kind of comically incompetent but still very dangerous villain. I love the kind of expansion of the world. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is great in pretty much a kind of silent performance as kind of young Charlize Theron. I think it has the single best action sequence. I love action cinema. In the sort of 20-minute, you think how many different variations on a truck fighting off like sort of weaponized vehicles could you have, especially after Fury Road? You just but they do it, and I really like Tom Burke as the kind of surrogate Mad Max sort of stand-in. I thought their relationship, because I thought there was a lot of heart in the film, and I thought their relationship, their almost sort of love affair, when he acts as kind of warrior mentor, and then kind of almost are they, aren't they, sort of lovers sort of thing, was just really moving in the heart of it. And I just thought this was a great sort of science fiction epic cinema. And I saw it twice and I loved it. And I know you really don't like it. So. Go on, Venice, please.
I think that was probably my another big disappointment for me. Everything you liked about it was just things that I just was not bothered about. I didn't get on board with any. I didn't feel that there was a lot of heart. I thought she was okay, Anya Taylor-Joy. I do rate her as an actor. I just didn't buy it, and I wasn't really bothered about Chris Hemsworth. He's not my favorite actor. I'm sure he's a really lovely guy, and is incredibly successful. So I don't think he gives a shit whether I like his performance or not. And a lot of people did like his performance. Great. I just didn't buy it. I didn't get on board. Was just and I absolutely love Fury Road. Fury Road for me, I think, is my favorite of the Mad Maxes. I've seen them all like several times, obviously since they came out, and rewatched all of them. But Fury Road, I think, works as is almost like a perfect 5-star film. Like all the pieces are in the right place, whereas I felt that all the pieces were not quite in the right place for Furiosa, unfortunately. Yeah.
And it bombed hard at the box office.
It did, yeah, which was shame. Like, I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't.
Well, I didn't want it to happen. I think it'll kind of enjoy. And unlike Horizon, I think Horizon will be like a talking point for the wrong reasons. But I think it'll have its defenders. But I think Furiosa will be one of those movies whose sort of cult status grows exponentially in time. The thing that really kind of made me sad, and I'm just going to throw in a hate. Was the fact that it bombed hard at the same time that Deadpool Wolverine became one of the highest grossing movies of the year, which I absolutely despise. I like the
Right.
first two Deadpool movies. I genuinely did, but this felt like so cynical. Such a sort of like 2 hours of basically flagrant fan service. This is what you want. This is what you're going to get. And it was just this sort of there was no heart in it. You didn't feel because in the first Deadpool, even though it's like flippant smart ass movie, which is the point, you still feel for him. You still kind of, they still manage to make you feel for the fact that he's mutilated. He's turned into this kind of, kind of Frankenstein monster. He loves this woman and he doesn't know how he's going to kind of. So in the middle of all of the stuff that we remember, which is like which was great first out the gate, and then kind of slightly diminishing returns, but still really entertaining with the second one. It just feels there's none of that. You don't feel any jeopardy. You don't feel that he's trying to save the world to kind of get his cadre of friends back. You've got awful performances by terrific actors. Matthew McFadden just mugging it, like he's in a Carry On movie. It just doesn't work.
Like he's in a
And
Paddington
what I
movie.
hated was the cynicism of it and the way that mobs of fans can absolutely dictate the course of a movie, and it feels like the tail wagging the dog, and everyone's just losing their excrement over. Oh, there's Wesley Snipes, there's Jennifer Garner, there's Channing Tatum, and it just became that. It just became a succession of excuses to cameo people, and it was awful. I just didn't really feel there was any chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Greatest Showman, and I absolutely hated this film. I thought the first 20 minutes was really good fun, and then it just this horrible plastic kind of cynicism, and people went to see it in their squillions, a ton of money, and while Furiosa's drowning in its own petrol, to make any kind of commercial impact. Awful film. Yeah, I've got one left. Yeah.
Well, let me give you mine first. So you gave me your favorite. My favorite was by far The Substance. I just thought it was an absolutely incredible, ballsy feminist body horror film that I was not expecting in the slightest. I think I enjoyed it much more. I saw it on the last night of the Sydney Film Festival a few months before it came out, and then when it did come out, I took Megan to see a screening of it again in a huge cinema that was full, and it was so much fun being in this big cinema, knowing what's coming, and hearing the reaction of all the people in the audience. Like it was the most fun I had at the cinema. I giggled like a school kid, like all the way through it. I just thought, this is audacious, this is brilliant. Like this French woman, Coralie Fagiat, who I'd never heard of before. Obviously, since you told me about Revenge, I watched Revenge, her previous film, which was great. But yeah, The Substance, led by an incredible performance by Demi Moore, who's, back front and center now. I think she's in Landman, isn't she?
Yes, yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to seeing more of her in that. And I was never a massive Demi Moore fan, but I'm a huge fan now. I think she's brilliant, and please nominate her for something just because of the subject matter, because we're in Hollywood. I mean, it's a real sort of touch and go whether or not they're going to sort of. I mean, it's getting awards, it's winning awards around the world, right? But a
good indicator is that she got a Golden Globe nomination for it, so that's normally a good forecast.
Right.
So I reckon she will. I think because like Hollywood loves a comeback, don't they?
Especially of an old, like, I mean that in the most respectful way, an old Hollywood like legend,
Yeah, well, you had it a few years ago, didn't you, with Jamie Lee Curtis and Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she won. She won, which was before it. She won.
That was my favorite film of that year.
And then Michelle Yeoh as well. She it was like that kind of. It was the triple and short round. I can't remember his name, but
Kwan.
So it was one veteran and one kind of where did he go, and then one and then the sort of grand dame of sort of world cinema in Michelle Yeoh. I think she'll get nominated. I hope
Yeah,
Margaret Qualley
wonderful.
gets nominated because I think
I
she's
think she was brilliant as well.
arguably a bit better as well, because the Substance didn't make my list, despite the fact that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was,
Mm,
just insane, and I
yeah,
like kind of big swings. I like kind of insane. I like people who just kind of where their imaginations are off the hook, and it's one of those movies where you think, oh, it's going to end now. Oh no, there's more, and it just sort of, and the final image, and again, we're not going to give it away. The very
yeah,
final image
yeah.
is great. It's just horrible. And I think the only reason that didn't really make my top 10, it would be in a kind of like, kind of a runner-up list. No, it's because it was just a little bit too long for me. Just little things, little calibrations, which might make you really annoyed when you hear what my next best movie is. But it just little calibrations, and I thought Demi Moore was great. But then what you talked about bits where you could kind of, I think towards the end where she's kind of degenerating, I felt I could see her acting a little bit.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds really picky, whereas I felt Margaret Qualley was just seamless throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing. And I think I really hope that I hope Demi Moore gets an Oscar nomination for it, but I'd really like Margaret Qualley to get one because she's just been
Mm,
churning out great work, with one exception this
Drive
year.
Away Dolls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Drive Away Dolls, which I won't say too much. That was on my I hated that movie. I thought she was
Yeah.
just, everything was just too big, too much, too in your
Yeah.
face, um, trying too hard, trying to be outrageous. And I think Margaret
Mm.
Qualley gives one of the worst and the best performances. It's acting.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
takes
Yeah.
risks in two movies. But yeah, I mean, all is forgiven for the Substance. She's phenomenal in that. And yeah, I loved it. I just loved its craziness and its
Yeah.
disgustingness.
Same. Yeah.
And it just,
Wonderful.
and
Wonderful.
it just looks at society and thought, I like society, but I don't think they went far enough in that ending where that guy gets
Yeah.
where that guy gets
Yeah.
his that guy gets pulled inside out by his anus. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Totally.
It just didn't go too far. That should have just been the beginning of
Yeah.
the starting point of a sequence of increasingly disgusting and inventive sort of. And Dennis Quaid as well. He's great in it, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
another veteran just doing great work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Tom.
my can I tell you my last film? I always
Please.
feel like in our sort of top tens every year, I always have a movie that's just not going to make it into anybody's top 10.
Yeah. That's
The
it.
example would have been Strays the other year, which would have
A
been
horrible film.
absolutely top or the
Yeah.
bottom of your worst
Yeah.
list. I just loved it. It was so entertaining. Uh,
Yeah.
Last year it would have been like an Irish horror film called Unwelcome. You just see it like a B movie. And
Mm.
I love that. It just stayed with me. And one of my favorite, and this would have been in my top three. This would have been like number three, I think. After is Hellboy the Crooked Man? Genuinely, the new
Mm.
Hellboy movie,
Mm.
and it's nothing to do with anybody who's made any of this. It's not, Guillermo del Toro hasn't got any kind of involvement in it. It was produced and co-written by Mike Mignola, and it's a very faithful adaptation of the Crooked Man comic, which I didn't know anything about, and I've subsequently read. Really low budget, made by Brian Taylor, who's like, there's a director duo, and they're famous for the Crank movies, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, and Mum and Dad, Nicolas Cage, Selma Blair horror film, which I haven't seen, was supposed to be very good. And it's kind of very cheaply made. It's set in the Appalachian Mountains, but I loved it. I thought it was very hard boiled. I love the dialogue. I like the guy that played Hellboy, but it was the specificity of the world it's set in. It was the kind of Appalachian horror, and again, it's got a mood. And I like films that kind of punch above their weight in terms of budget. So it's sort of with very little money. I think it cost $20 million, which doesn't sound, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's kind of a mid budget movie, and it just generates this very specifically Appalachian world of witches, hoodoo men,
Mm.
giant, Satan in the form of a giant raven. And I found the central relationship between Hellboy and his sort of Chinese American agent really moving. And I've seen it three times. So it's just like punching up on behalf of a scrappy little movie that got
Right.
largely negative reviews, with the exception of Kim Newman, who's like the horror go-to guy for the BFI, and he really praised it. That made me want to go and see it. Saw it twice in a week. Bought it on DVD, no Blu-ray. Watched it. So just I love Hellboy: The Crooked Man. It's not going to be on anybody
Right.
else's. Like, yeah, but I loved it. I just loved it. There we
Right.
go.
Great. It's on my list of films to watch. I'm
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
From your recommendation before. Yeah, great. I don't think I have anything else with that. I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about it, but like Dune 2 was disappointing. I was like, after seeing Dune 2, I was like, okay, I'm not really into this. I'm not on the board as much as I thought
Yeah,
I
I
was.
like Dune too. Watching it, I
right,
would have thought. Well, as I was watching, I think I saw it. Did I see it twice? No, I didn't. Watching it, I would have assumed it would have ended up on my top 10 list, but it just didn't for some reason. I liked it.
I saw it at IMAX as well,
Yeah.
but yeah, just there's something about that whole Frank Herbert Dune world that I just don't connect with. It doesn't show it doesn't paint the picture of the universe. It paints the picture of a planet, and then people come to a planet, and because of that, I didn't feel included into it. It's not as clever as it wants to be. I think it's just. I think I'm just on the wrong side of my age of it. I think it seems that people who were a bit older than me at school were really into it, and maybe probably people who are younger are into it. But yeah, for me, nah.
Yeah, so I think I'm a year older than you, so that's probably why, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm like a year older, I'll probably hate it.
Yeah, totally.
I really liked it. I think I've only got one more movie on my worst list, and it was a movie that you had a lot of time for, a lot of respect for. I
Yeah.
was bored,
Oh yeah.
silly. You know what I'm
Yeah.
going to say, don't you? I
Yeah,
was
you and
bored,
everybody
silly,
else,
and
mate.
really annoyed by its pretentiousness, and that's
Yeah.
Megalopolis.
Yeah.
I hated Megalopolis. I saw it in IMAX as well. I thought, I don't know. I just thought it was one of these movies. I thought, well, whether I like it or not, it's going to be visually stunning because I've seen all those bits in the trailer with moving statues
Yeah.
and everything you see in the trailer. That's it. It's just like it's lots of guys in Art Deco rooms just being unbelievably pretentious in dialogue that isn't
Mm.
that clever. Yeah, I just it's awful to say that about a legend like Francis Ford Coppola. But I didn't respect the effort. I just thought, no, you need a producer. Like Terry Gilliam. There's this like myth of like, producers hold Terry Gilliam back. What he needs is like unfettered access and like a massive budget. And then when that happens, you watch the results. You go, oh, this is a bit messy, isn't it? I just wish they had someone just to tell him, don't do that, don't do that. And I thought it was the same with. I just thought it was boring. It was boring and wasn't as visually interesting as I thought it would be. I thought Adam Driver was abysmal in it. I thought it was an awful performance. I mean, it was big swings, and he's a great actor, but it was terrible. Didn't like it. Didn't like it, Damien.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough, brother. Fair
No,
enough.
not fair enough.
Totally fair enough. I mean, look, mate, there's no point in me arguing against it. The whole world hated Megalopolis, so like,
Apart from directors, they've all really closed ranks on it. You've got, and I wonder how much of that is just, like you've got Francis Ford Coppola, not Francis Ford, Guillermo del Toro calling it, oh, this is like this will be regarded as a classic. This great visionary directing. Directors have completely closed ranks, and I would imagine that there's a kind of unofficial blacklist for any director apart from Quentin Tarantino who can just say what he likes about anybody. He can say, I love the fact in his book he says, yeah, Taxi Driver's all right, it'd been better if Brian De Palma directed it. It's too tasteful. You think only he could probably get away with saying that, but yeah, they've all closed ranks. I guess there's this unofficial club that if you're a director and you slag Megalopolis off, you're not going to go invited to the directors' Christmas party and like their little directors' societies. But yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the last two Scorsese films. The last who else? Which old fuckers have been doing things? What's his name? Ridley Scott. You know how I feel about him anyway. That Napoleon nonsense. Napoleon, The Irishman, Killers of the Flower Moon. can all take, a running dive, as far as I'm concerned. And when I watched Megalopolis, I think I enjoyed it for its aspirations more than anything. I don't think it succeeded all the way, but it was entertaining for me. I enjoyed the world, the transposition of the sort of ancient into the modern or into the future. So yeah, that's okay. I think I was, with me and those directors you talk about were the only people who liked it. So never mind.
Weirdly enough, I felt this. I felt the same way about I would say monogamous. That'd be a different film. Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of like really really good revivals, that sort of repertory screenings, kind of in Nottingham, and I went to see One from the Heart, which I just assumed I was going to adore. And again, I just felt pretty much the same way about it. I felt like, it was just, it's almost like he built this set, didn't quite know what to do with it, couldn't afford choreographers, just got in the big musical numbers. It was just almost like he's told the extras, just jiggle about a bit, that'll be all right. Terry Garr, you can dance, just do something. And also, I was surprised at how unlikable the central protagonists were. Like in this, it was just like you've got Harry Dean Stanton and Stasia Kinski as the kind of two kind of periphery like supporting characters, and I thought, well, let's just follow them. They're more interesting. Why are we hanging around with Frederick Forrest and Terry Garr, who I love and who died this year? And they're actually kind of really unlikable in a way that I don't think is completely intentional. So Megalopolis and One from the Heart they're kind of co-joined in terms of being these like incredible acts of folly that one of which effectively destroyed his career and made him radioactive for about a decade, and the other one which will just make sure that probably nobody ever releases a new Francis Ford Coppola movie ever again. But
yeah,
he's a legend.
Too much money.
Apparently, he made some good films in the 70s. That'll kind of be the things they talk about when he dies.
So before we go, I just want to just say a couple of special mentions. Caddo Lake, which I thought was really, really interesting. That was a Netflix thriller set in like Louisiana, sort of Texas. Really well put together, tense, keeps you on the edge. You don't know what's going on. Highly recommend you watch that. It's a great thriller.
What's it called again?
Surprising. Caddo Lake, Caddo Lake.
Okay.
Rebel Ridge, which I really enjoyed.
Very good.
You saw that, didn't you? That was a really fun Jeremy Saulnier film. I'd never seen Aaron Pierre, the big English actor dude, who was very good in that, and Diddy, which I saw the other day, which is Sean Wang's directorial debut as about a young Asian Chinese kid in the sort of like 90s, growing up and being awkward, and it's really beautiful. Again, 90 minutes. Also stars what's her name? Joan Chen, who I've not seen for a long time, who was a wonderful actress. She's great. She plays the mum, and it's really charming. And did you ever see Mid-90s? The other sort of skate
Jonah Hill film. Is it
Jonah Hill's film? Yeah, I enjoyed Diddy much more than I enjoyed Mid-90s. Mid-90s was all right, but yeah, there was something much more heartfelt and much more beautiful and honest about Diddy. So I don't know when that's. I think that's out on streaming anyway. But yeah, that's the lot. I think that's everything.
Yeah, just for me, just three revivals that really stood out. Really, really good year for sort of going to see old movies in the screen. Seven Samurai, any opportunity to see it on the screen, people should take it. I think that was particularly special because I saw it with my dad, and it was the first film I've been to see with my dad since before COVID. So I really enjoyed that. He's the one that got me into that movie in Kurosawa in the first place.
Nice.
Carrie, lots of really good horror movies. I enjoyed watching like the Todd Browning Dracula in Dracula Fest in Leicester, in the quads. No, in Derby. Sorry, Derby, for confusing you with Leicester. In the quad cinema, and I enjoyed it a lot more. We talked about how stilted and boring the Todd Browning Dracula movie was, but it made me appreciate Bela Lugosi as an actor in that role a lot more.
Okay, nice.
Seeing him on the big screen. Carrie was great. Carrie was extraordinary actually on the big screen, and just again, I'm a big advocate, a big fan of great acting in horror movies because I don't think it gets rewarded This was one that was rewarded. She got an Oscar nomination for it. And when you look at kind of actors as human special effects, Carrie's a great example of that. You know, the way she goes from kind of timid to confident to kind of this alien, you know, the way she's sort of still walking through this, you know, prom, setting people on fire just with this incredible body language and this kind of rictus face. It's also got a phenomenal evil teenage performance from Nancy Allen. I just so enjoyed watching her sort of just be this absolute queen bitch of actually a lot more scary than the kind of ostensible villain, which is Piper Laurie's deranged kind of religious mom, because you're not going to meet a lady like that in a hurry, but you know, you come across lots of people like this at school and you think, what's the degree? There's this kind of maybe kind of 2 degrees between them being just mean and being a murderer. And Nancy Allen's great, very underrated actress. And finally, Days of Heaven. I think that was the most kind of splendid movie, Terrence Malick's sort of movie after, you know, in between Badlands and the Thin Red Line, you know, just this kind of quasi-biblical sort of semi-Western love triangle story with this phenomenal child performance by Linda Manns, one of the best I've seen. Beautiful looking film in all the ways you expect Malick to be, you know, with his like biblical inferences and, you know, just the way he films nature. Great performances from Brooke Adams and Richard Gere. Brilliant film. Loved it.
Nice.
So
nice. Okay, well, I saw tons of Kurosawa this year off the back of Seven Samurai. The Hidden Fortress was really up there. It's a favorite film of mine, of his anyway. Ikiru was beautiful. Redbeard, which I'd never seen before, that was really stunning. I was a little bit bored by Ran, and I was a little bit bored by Throne of Blood. More so than I thought I would have been for both of those. But no, actually not Ran. I wasn't bored by Ran. I think I was just tired at Ran, but I was a little bit bored of Throne of Blood. I just thought, get on with it, mate. And I'd seen it like last year, 2 years ago, and I thought it was brilliant and really like stunning film. But the review of it, and I missed out on Rashomon and I missed out on Sanjuro, Yojimbo Sanjuro, unfortunately. But talking about Gremlins, I went to see Gremlins at the cinema, and that was a film that I went to see with my dad. It was the first 15 film I think that I saw, and my dad, when I was 13, I think at the time, and my dad wouldn't buy my ticket, so he sent me in the queue ahead. He said, you know, if you get in, then I'll come in. So I got the ticket, I managed to buy it, and then he bought it, his ticket, and then came and sat next to me. So yeah, that was a nice little sort of
back in the days where you could just sit where you wanted and smoke cigarettes in cinemas.
Totally. Not when you were sat next to your dad though, and you were 13.
Well, your dad could smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, totally. Well,
before we go, what are you? Anything you're looking forward to in 2025?
I'm looking forward to Nosferatu. I think I'm looking forward to that. I am looking forward to Anora, which has just been released today. Sean Baker's film starring Mikey Madison about sex worker. That's meant to be quite special. I think there's going to be a few films come out over the next few weeks or next month or so, as far, you know, to be pushed for the Oscars. And The Monkey that you were talking about, Osgood Perkins' film, I'm looking forward to. And yeah, what else? I'm sure everything that you say I'll probably be looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to The Monkey. Looking forward to The Gorge, actually. Scott Derrickson, who did the Black Phone, his sort of weird sort of horror movie love story for Apple TV. I've said that, but my mind's gone blank. There's a movie I think called 11 Outlaws, a Japanese kind of Dirty Dozen-esque sort of samurai movie that I'm looking forward to seeing how and where and whenever that pops up. And The Wolfman, looking forward to The Wolfman, you know, the Lee Wan-al. No,
don't know about that one.
I like werewolves.
Yeah,
those are the ones that spring to mind. I'm sure there's like loads more kind of more reputable films. Nosferatu, definitely. Oh, and the is it like We Live in Time? Is that the Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh thing comes out? Looking forward to that.
The Oscar.
Although it hasn't been, I don't think it's been nominated for anything, but it's
not.
You know,
it feels like it's an Oscar baity film, doesn't it? I mean, it does look sweet. Don't get me wrong, but
doesn't make it bad.
We'll see.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's it, really. and
Well,
on a note of
yeah, and on a
benignness.
yeah, for a change, we'll be back sometime in the new year.
Punching up at
With
something.
that's something. Who knows? We'll decide what it
Yeah.
is and get to work on a bit of research and
Yeah.
Well, that's probably the longest episode we've ever done.
Well, it should
So
be. It's a roundup of the year.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Seen a lot of
All right.
movies.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you, Adam. Happy New Year to our one listener. And yeah, see you in 2025. 2025, mate. That's the
Yeah.
future. I mean, what is going on?
Happy New Year, Eleanor, who I know is our one listener. This is for
thanks,
you.
Helena.
Dr. Eleanor, you know who you
Dr.
are.
Eleanor. Nice,
Listens to every
nice.
episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate it. Okay, well, hopefully we'll see you next year then, yeah?
Bye.
Ciao.
Mission has been completed.
You dirty flirt.